It's Sarah, and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet this simple children's bobble hat. The pattern comes in 3 sizes. The infant size is about 11 to 12 inches around. The toddler size is about 13 to 14 inches around, and then the child size is 15 to 16 inches around. So that gives you 3 sizes, so one of them can fit your child. The pattern was originally written with a medium weight number 4 yarn, and so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how you can take one of these little toppers and make the hat for your child with the topper that comes with the kit. You can use a pom-pom or you can use one of these little kits. It doesn't matter, or you don't even need a pom-pom at all if you don't want to. This is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and you can find that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. So what you're going to need is some yarn. You can use any medium weight number 4 yarn. For our demonstration today, I'm going to be using the Llama Kit Little Toppers by DMC. And you'll need about 2 to 3 ounces of yarn. These have 2.5, so I think I'm going to be just fine. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook, which is a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle to weave in some ends, and you'll need your scissors. If you're using a kit like one of these, you can use the topper on the top of your hat. If not, you might want to add a pom-pom. You can make one or buy one or make one with the yarn that you're using. There's lots of options for making this child's hat. Remember, think outside the pattern and use your creativity. For today's demonstration, I'm going to be making the child size hat, and then I'll give you instructions on how to do the toddler and infant as we go along. We're going to start with the band of our hat, and then we'll work our way up and decrease at the top. I've taken apart my kit. I've removed my llama head, and I've got my little circle here. Don't throw that away. You're going to need that when we attach that onto our hat. All right, let's get started. We're going to begin first by making a slip knot and then chain 5. We're going to stitch a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Here's our first one, here's our second. We'll go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. And we'll do this across. We began with the chain 5, we stitched in the second chain from the hook, and in each chain across, so we have 4 single crochets. We're going to chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to stitch in the back loops only to form the ridges of our hat band. And so if you look on the top of your work, you have loops on this side and loops on this side. The loops that are facing you are your front loops. The loops that are facing away are your back loops. And so we'll go right in that first stitch because our chain 1 does not count as a stitch. It's just a turning chain. So we'll go right in that first stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. And we're stitching in the back loops. And this gives us a nice stretchy band for our hat. So I've stitched 4 single crochets working in the back loop only. We're going to chain 1 and turn, and then we're going to repeat that. 1 single crochet in each of the 4 single crochets working in the back loops only. Chain 1 and turn. Let's do another one. We chained 1, we turned, working in the back loops only, 1 single crochet in those 4 single crochets, chain 1 and turn. And if you look at your work, you'll see this is the way the band's going to go, and you'll see that you have indentations and you have ridges. We have 4 rows here of our band, and our band is going to be getting longer around. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue to repeat chain 1, 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, chain 1, turn. 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, always stitching in the back loops. And so you need to continue to repeat row 2 for as many rows as you need for your size. If you're making the infant size, you'll need to repeat row 2 for 37 more rows. If you're making the toddler size, you'll need to repeat row 2 for 46 more rows. And if you're making the child size like I am, you'll need to repeat row 2 for 59 more rows. And that's going to get you a long band, the size that you need for the size that you're making. I've completed the band for my hat, and I have a total of 63 rows, because remember, we started with 4 and then we did our repeats for the size that we need. Make sure you add those 4 rows in, and what you should have is, if you're doing the infant size, your total should be 41 rows. If you're doing the toddler size, you should have 50 rows, and if you're doing the child size like I am, you should have 63 rows. So what we're going to do now, without twisting our band, because we don't want to twist in our hat, we're going to put the 2 ends together, and we're going to single crochet across, stitching them together. I've got my chain 1, so I'll go in the first stitch on this side and the first stitch on this side and stitch a single crochet. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so now, let me pull that just a little so you can see this. You'll see that that blends in nicely, and that, of course, that's the back of your hat, but this is the way that your band should look. We've stitched our ends together with those 4 single crochets, and now we're going to chain 3. And we're going to be stitching along the top edge of our hat band. We're going to be stitching a double crochet in the end of each stitch. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And you'll be stitching a stitch in each of the indentation and the ridge of each stitch. And we're stitching in the ends of the rows. So here's the indentation, so I'll put a stitch in the end of that row. And then here's my ridge, and I'll put a stitch in the end of that row. And so when we joined, we added a row with our join here. And so what we're going to get is the same number of double crochets as we do for our hat band. We added this row. So for the infant size, you'll have a total of 42 double crochets, because our join here counted as a row as well. And for the toddler size, you'll have a total of 51 double crochets. And then for the child size, like I'm making, I'll have a total of 64 double crochets. So basically, the amount of rows plus the join is your stitch count that you'll have for your double crochets. All right, so I'm going to continue working around, stitching 1 double crochet in the indentation, and 1 double crochet in the ridge of the end of each row. I've completed this row of double crochets, stitching 1 double crochet in the top of the indentation of that row and 1 double crochet in the top of the ridges all the way around. And again, your stitch count is going to be the same number of rows plus where we joined. And of course, it's different for each size. We're going to join to our chain 3 with a slip stitch, and we're just going to chain 1. And this row we're going to do our bobble stitches. We're going to stitch a single crochet in the first 2 stitches, and now we're going to stitch a bobble stitch in the next. We're going to yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through just the first 2 loops, yarn over, go in that same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and just go through the first 2 loops. Now you have those 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, go in that same stitch and pull up another loop. Only go through, yarn over, only go through the first 2, and now we have 4 loops on our hook. Yarn over and go through all 4 of those loops. And what I do is I sort of push it forward, and then I go to the next stitch, and we're going to stitch a single crochet in that one and then the next one. And when you push it forward with your finger, it makes it pop out on the front. And so we're going to repeat this, working all the way around. 2 single crochets and then a bobble stitch in the next. There's my bobble stitch, and now I'm going to stitch a single crochet in the next 2. 1 and 2. And this is the same for all 3 sizes. You'll just have less stitches for the smaller sizes. Bobble stitch and 1 single crochet in the next 2. 1 and 2. And that's our repeat for this row. 2 single crochets, 1 in each of the next 2, and a bobble stitch in the next, and we'll repeat this all the way around this row. And remember, the smaller sizes will have less stitches. I've completed my row of 2 single crochets and a bobble stitch. Repeat all the way around, and your bobbles may not be popping out like you want them to, but when we do the next row they will. And you might also notice that it's going to kind of fan out at this point, but when we do the next row it's going to pull that in a little bit. Now you want to end on a bobble stitch, and then we'll join to that first single crochet and chain 1. And this next row we're just going to stitch 1 single crochet in each single crochet and bobble around. Alright, so we'll put a single crochet in those first 2 single crochets. And then look at the top of your bobble stitch and make sure you just put 1 single crochet in that stitch. This is where you can accidentally add stitches. So just look at the top up here where the braid or the loops are, and just put 1 single crochet in the top, and then 1 single crochet in those 2 single crochet stitches. And this row is going to help shape it, but also it'll help pop those bobbles right out. So we're stitching one single crochet in each of the single crochets and bobble stitches around. We'll repeat this all the way around and join back to our single crochet. I've completed this row of single crochet, and you can see that it's brought in my hat a little bit. It's not quite so fanned out. We're going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch, and we're going to chain 3. And this next row, we're just going to place one double crochet in each of those single crochets around. So, one double crochet in each single crochet around, and we'll join back to our chain 3. I've completed that row of double crochets. I'm going to join to my chain 3. And now I'm just going to chain 1, because what we're going to do on this next row is just one single crochet in each of the double crochets around. One single crochet in each double crochet around, join back to our single crochet. And then we're going to do another row of bobble stitches. I'm just going to continue on around, stitching my one single crochet in each of the double crochets. I completed that row of single crochets, and I've joined to my first single crochet. Now, what I want to show you is what we're going to do next. We're going to repeat the bobble stitch row of 2 single crochets and a bobble stitch. Then we're going to repeat a row of single crochet and a row of double crochet. So we're going to be repeating those 3 rows one more time. The bobble stitch row, the single crochet row, and the double crochet row. We'll repeat those 3 rows one more time. I've repeated those 3 rows. We've got our bobble stitch row, a row of single crochet, and a row of double crochet. And now we're going to be changing it a little bit for the different sizes. If you are making the infant size, you want to skip ahead to R15. If you're making the toddler or child size, we're going to do another row of double crochets. Our chain 3 counts as our first. We'll go right into our next stitch and stitch another row of double crochets. And remember, if you're making the infant size, skip ahead to row 15. If you're making the toddler or child size, we're going to stitch another row of double crochets. I've stitched that second row of double crochet. Now, if you're making the toddler size, you need to go ahead and skip forward to R15. But if you're making the child size like I am, we're going to stitch another row of double crochets. And after we stitch this row of double crochets, we'll all be at R15, and we'll begin our decrease rows to form the top of our hat. One thing to keep in mind, and that is that all heads are different, and if you need a longer hat, you can add as many rows in here as you want to. So I'm going to continue this row because I'm making the child size, one double crochet in each of the double crochets around. So now we're to row 15. And all the sizes, of course, you have one extra row of double crochet if you made the infant, you have two if you made the toddler, and you have 3 rows of just basic double crochet if you are making the child's size. Now we're going to begin our decreased rows in order to form the top of our hat. Our chain 3 counts is our first double crochet. We're going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and then we're going to do a double crochet decrease or stitching 2 double crochets together. Yarn over, go in the next stitch and pull up a loop. Then we'll go in the next stitch and pull up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook instead of the normal 3. Yarn over and go through the first 3 loops. Yarn over and go through the last 2. And what we've done is we've made 2 stitches into 1. And the repeat is 1 double crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, this is 2, and 3. And then we'll do our double crochet decrease or stitching 2 double crochets together. And we'll repeat this all the way around for all 3 sizes. 3 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 3, and then stitch our double crochet decrease. And repeat all the way around. And you can already see how it's pulling in that row. I've completed that row, and you can see how just adding a few decreased stitches brings the top of the hat in. And so what we're going to do for row 16 is similar, but we're only going to do 2 double crochets and then the decreased stitch. Our chain 3 counts as our first. There's my second double crochet, and now I'm going to stitch a decreased stitch or stitching 2 double crochets together. And that's the repeat for this row. 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then a decreased stitch or stitching 2 double crochets together, and repeat. On the previous row, we did 3 double crochet stitches, and then we did our double crochet decrease. On this row, we're only doing 2 double crochet stitches and then our double crochet decrease, or stitching 2 double crochets together. And so you'll see your hat come in even more quickly. 2 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 2, and then our double crochet decrease stitch or stitching 2 double crochets together all the way around, and we'll join back to that chain 3. I completed that second row of double crochet decrease stitches with our regular double crochets, and now this is our last row. And so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch a double crochet and then a double crochet decrease. And your hole in the top of your hat is going to be smaller if you're doing a smaller size hat. So our chain 3 counts is our first, then we'll stitch a double crochet decrease with the next 2 stitches, and then 1 double crochet in the next, and our double crochet decrease in the next. Double crochet in the next, and double crochet decrease in the next. One double crochet in the next stitch, and double crochet decrease or stitching 2 double crochets together in the next, and we'll repeat this all the way around and join back to that chain 3. We've completed that last row of the decreased rows, and if you look, I still have lots of yarn left, so even if you needed to make the hat a little bigger, you could with the little topper yarn. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to cut our yarn, and I'm going to leave about a 12 to 16 inch tail of yarn because we're going to use that to gather the top of the hat closed. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie that off. I'm going to put this string to the inside, and I'm going to flip my hat wrong side out. I'm going to grab my needle, and I'm going to thread that onto my needle. Flatten that out a little bit. There we go. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sew the top of this and gather the hat closed. So we're just going to go in and out these last stitches that we made. Just going in and out of each stitch. And again, the hole in the top of your hat will be smaller if you made the smaller hats. But that doesn't matter how big the hole is, as long as we get it closed and it lays nicely. Alright, so I'm back around. I'm going to pull that nice and snug. And I like to just do a stitch like that to hold it. And I'm going to kind of pooch those edges out and do some cross stitching across, like across this way, and then I'll go across this way. The main thing I'm trying to do here is make sure the hole in the top of my hat is closed, and it's going to stay closed. There we go. I'm going to leave that string attached, and I'll show you why when I add either the pom-pom or the little llama that we're making for this hat. So I'm just going to set that inside so you can see what it looks like on the top. It's all gathered closed. And there's our hat. Now, if your bobbles are not sticking out like you'd like them to, just take your finger and pooch them out. Sometimes they go in instead of out. All right, let's add our topper. If you're adding a store-bought pom-pom, make sure you follow the directions that come with that pom-pom. But I'm going to be putting on a llama. And I like to cut these tags off, but you don't have to, especially if you're giving it as a gift. You can leave the tags on. That's totally up to you. All right, so what I do is I take my crochet hook, I go to the center, to the side, and I pull one of those strings. Oops. Get this so you can see it. All the way through, and then I go to the opposite side and I pull the other one. Now what I do at this point is make sure, whoop, my hook got stuck. Get that ribbon. I want to make sure that my llama is going to be facing the direction I want to wear this hat. Alright, so here's my llama. I'm going to go to the inside, and you can see I've got that string there, and I'll show you why that's there in just a minute. I'm just going to tie a knot, but not a knot that I can't untie. And then we're going to take this little circle. We'll put the ribbon on the needle, go through one. Then we'll take the ribbon, the needle, and go through the other hole. And on this one, we're going to tie a knot and a bow. And the reason we're doing it this way is we want to be able to take that llama off if this hat needs to be washed. And then I take this and I wrap it around a couple of times. I'll take my needle and just weave it underneath there and cut that off. The circle helps the stuffed head, whatever you're putting on your hat, to stand up a little bit better when the child is wearing the hat. And so there's our llama hat. Actually, he's our Bobble llama hat.